beyond in the beginning, so breaking cycles down to the limit. And if you believing in your spirit, what you hearing, kid, you win it. Spread it around to your friends, catch the feeling. If it's real, then reveal it. Show the world how you shine through your potential. The classrooms, the living presidential. And everything is mental. Whatever the mind conceives in the shaping is a tool as you step in the greatness. S. Gotta have the discipline to learn and do for self. T is for the talent that'll help you earn wealth. E is the experience to put you in the game. And P is for the purpose so that people know your name. What you do. What you do. What you do. What you do. S. Gotta have the discipline to learn and do for self. T is for the talent that'll help you earn your wealth. E is the experience to put you in the game. P is for the purpose so that people know your name.
There will be times in your life when you need to step up to the challenge, face adversity, and step up to the responsibility of taking your life in your own hands.
Use the self-discipline. Learning's very interesting. It's time in life important, so you gotta know the differences. Your talent is a superpower, but you gotta practice, right? Doubt will knock you out. Gotta stay away from kryptonite. Experience will teach you what to use from what you learn from life. Make the right decisions, and your steps will be a guiding light. So tell me, what's your purpose? Do you want to rule the world and be successful in the game? Then make it plain. If it's real, then reveal it. Show the world how you shine is essential. From the classrooms to living presidential. But everything is mental. Whatever the mind conceives in the shaping, unleash your potential, then the greatness. S. Gotta have the discipline to learn and do for self. T is for the talent that'll help you earn your wealth. E is the experience to put you in the game. And P is for the purpose so that people know your name. What you do. What you do. What you do. What you do. S. Gotta have the discipline to learn and do for self. T is for the talent that'll help you earn your wealth. E is the experience to put you in the game. P is for the purpose so that people know your name.
Invest time in yourself, in your passion, in your purpose. Use that foundation, build on it, step up to greatness. Unleash your potential. Step Up Radio, Step Up Radio, Step Up Radio. Self-discipline, talent, experience, and purpose will unleash your potential. We are live in the legendary studios of Kcoh TV, The Boost. I'm your host, Nolan Davis, and today is Transformational Tuesdays. Now, usually on Tuesday, we do have Dr. Sunita Pajabi. She actually calls in, and we talk a lot about creating habits. She's a neuroplasticist. And what that means is that she literally can tell you how to use your brain to get to that next level, to go through that breakthrough that you're looking for. So hopefully we'll be able to get her on the show. She's been on the last couple of weeks. And this week we're supposed to talk about patience, right? The reasons people are impatient and how you can become more patient. I believe patience is something that everybody needs, especially when you're trying to literally design your life, right? So when we look at being our own inventors of our lives, we have to tweak this, we have to tweak that, we have to go through the process, and you have to have patience. It's kind of like harvest. It's like if you plant seeds tonight, you're not gonna have vegetables tomorrow. Like you gotta fertilize it, you gotta water it, you have to prune it, you have to do all of these things. Then it has to bear fruit, then it has to ripen before you can eat. And I feel like that's exactly what happens in our own journey. It's so many times that people want to go to one practice and then they want to go into the Super Bowl. Like, dude, it's one practice. Like, shut up. right? So it's just that type of situation. So as we talk about Transformational Tuesdays, I have a lady here right now that she's going to tell us about her transformation and some of the things that she went through and some of her successes as well. But she had a little problem with depression, and she literally came out of that on her own. And I met her about a year or so ago, and I remember standing there at a booth talking to her. She had a big banner kind of like mine with her face on it, and I remember the whole setup. And I sat there and I talked to her, and at the time I didn't have the show, but I kept a card. And then when we started the show, I said I want to give this lady a call. So what we like to do is give it up from a finger snap right here in the studio. So ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Miss Pam. Hey Pam, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great, Nolan. How are you? Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you know what we really take pride in here is not really about who you are right now. We do appreciate that. But how did you get there? Because that story inspires so many people, because a lot of times you feel like you're at your lowest point and you see someone else that broke through, or they grow through their go through. That's a big shout out to Chip Baker from that standpoint. He was one of the people that we had on here. But tell us your story a little bit.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Well, I am just thrilled to share that, at this point, I am in complete recovery from major depressive disorder. And my story is really growing up as a child. My dad had major depressive disorder and was hospitalized in the 1960s. And of course, it was super taboo back then, to even discuss anything about a mental illness. And of course, I observed that growing up. My dad was amazing. He was wonderful, but he had this depression. And of course, my greatest fear was always that I might slide down into the deep, dark depths of depression.
Right.
I've always been super upbeat. My friends call me the Queen of Fun. And
that's a great title, by the way, the Queen of Fun. Like, that sounds like no parties can take off until you arrive.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I'm the first one to get there and the last one to leave. And
okay. All right.
pretty much, that's kind of how I've been my whole life. Very, very active. And then at age 52, my son was 13 years old. He was actually having his bar mitzvah, and we threw this amazingly grand party. Our host daughter from Brazil, Ana Clara Kcoh Rodriguez, if you're out there, was going home after living with us for a year. There were several triggers, as well as menopause, that definitely, I believe, was a trigger. And for someone who was out, up all the time, I literally could not get out of bed. It was as though my feet had concrete blocks on them. And not that I was sleeping, because I couldn't really sleep. I wasn't watching TV. I wasn't answering friends' calls over the phone. I wasn't eating particularly. So it's just a huge stark contrast for somebody like me to go from one end of the spectrum, really, to the other.
Right.
So that was in 2010, and I struggled with major depressive disorder that was also referred to as treatment-resistant depression until 2015. So it was 4.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really intense. The only thing that kept me going, interestingly, was my work. I had been working for the same company for many years, for Nino Properties Real Estate. I was their director of relocation, and I did a lot of recruiting. And I went to work 3 days a week. I felt like I was a zombie, to be quite honest, but I guess I had done it for so long, it was almost, routine. But the second I would get home, I was in bed. My son came home from school. I jumped out of bed, threw on a robe, said hello, jumped back in bed. Didn't go to the grocery store, didn't go to Target. I'm married, so this is like a whole ordeal for the family as a whole.
Right, right.
Yeah. So my wellness, of course, I went to a psychiatrist. I went to the same psychiatrist for 3 years. And I wish I could show you this slide that I have of all the different medications that I had taken. You've seen them all on TV, whether it's the wind-up lady with Prestige or Latuda, whatever the thing you've heard on the TV, I was on that medication. And it would work maybe for a couple of weeks, and then boom, it didn't work any longer. So my friends were constantly saying, switch psychiatrists. I was in therapy as well, spoke to people about my history, which, clearly, like all of us, or many of us that come from somewhat dysfunctional families, I think there's a bit of a biological component and nurture component to my depression. But all in all, basically, I was groping to try to figure out what to do. I was just taking different medicines. I'm Jewish. I started going to church. I mean, I did anything and everything. I tried to find groups, talk to people, talk to therapists, and nothing really seemed to help. It was very discouraging.
One of the things is really that I tip my hat to you is that you didn't give up. It's just that trying and trying. Some people don't even give it a try. So my question to you is this. Most of the time people say when it comes to work, they hate their jobs, right? But it seems like your job is what kept you going for a while. What is it that you loved about your job that kept you going?
Well, first of all, I had been with the company at that time for about 16 years in 2 different phases. But I really loved everything I did with Nino Properties Real Estate, specializing in working with newcomers to Houston that are relocating domestically and internationally. So I was the point of contact for many of the people that were moving in the medical center. I did all the hiring of the realtors. We had a huge project in 2015 with ExxonMobil and their relocation. So I loved what I did at work. I just felt totally overwhelmed, and my self-esteem just got shot down. So I didn't feel like I was capable. Yeah.
Got you. Okay. All right. So when you were taking the medications, was it this felt a little bit better than the last, or because it sounded like you tried a lot of different medications? So was it that type of situation or what?
Yes. Well, of course, you always want a silver bullet, right? When you're struggling and suffering from a illness such as depression. You just want to take a medicine just like you would for diabetes or high blood pressure or whatever the case may be. But with a mental illness, it's so very different. It's an art. It's not a science. I don't care who you are, what your credentials are. It's a lot of trial and error. And in fact, I ended up going to my psychiatrist, who I absolutely adore, for the past 3 years since I guess it's been 4.5 years since I've been in recovery. And to be honest with you, at the end of the day, and this gentleman is a neuropharmacological psychiatrist, at the end of the day, he asked me, okay, well, what do you think we should do? And so I picked a drug that I had been on years before, and he coupled it with another one, and it laid the foundation for me being able to then work on my recovery through the PRISM Center, P-R-I-S-M, PRISM Center. An amazing, amazing place. I learned about the PRISM program when I was on a walk with NAMI, National Association of Mental Illness. They have a walk every year, and I went by myself and ended up walking with this wonderful couple. Come to find out, it was Bum Phillips' daughter.
Okay.
Yeah, and she had a couple of girls that struggled and suffered. She was walking on their behalf, and she had a retreat every year in Goliad, Texas. And she invited me to that retreat, and that was the beginning of my wellness, going to her retreat. Because her daughter had been to the PRISM Center, and that's where she shared about, her wellness.
Got you. So now that you got a baseline, right? What were some of the things, because you were very active of trying different things, what were some of the things that literally got you to be that shining face that I saw at the expo, right? Because it's nothing, you have nothing about depression on you right now.
Right,
Like,
right.
you have the bright eyes, you have the bright smile, it's very welcoming. So now that you had the base, then what were some of the things that other things that you implemented to get you to where you are now?
Yeah, thanks so much for asking. The reason that I am starting my business, Good Friend Speaks, is because I am so passionate about depression, mental illness, and the effect it has on all of us, quite frankly. 1 in 8 people suffer from depression. It's the leading cause of suicide in people ages 15 to 44, leading cause of disability. It's rampant. I mean, we're hearing about it every day, right? We can look out on the streets and see it.
Absolutely.
So, so in terms of the Prism Center and what it has done for me is that you learn, it's actually a program that was founded by a woman named Martha Linehan.
Okay.
She had borderline personality disorder, and she had gone everywhere to try to get treatment, like many of us do. She created this program, and what it is that's so amazing about it is that it's not about your family history and your past and rehashing things that came up. It was all about coping skills. It's all about learning how to cope from many different types of angles. For example, there are 4 different subcategories, I guess you would say, of these skills.
Okay.
Everybody's talking about mindfulness, right?
Yes.
You're hearing about mindfulness all over the place. Well, there are many skills under the category of mindfulness. One being non-judgmental stance. So, for example, Nolan, who do you judge the most?
Trey Wade.
Is that true, Trey?
That's Trey.
Okay, Trey, who do you judge the most?
Don't say no.
That's right. Say it again. You said it.
Myself.
Myself. Exactly.
Right, right.
We are the hardest critics of ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So we have to learn to be mindful, to not judge ourselves, to treat ourselves as compassionately as we would to a friend. Because if a friend said to you, something about, gosh, I feel like I look awful, my stomach is hanging over my pants, I'm going on this radio interview, I feel bloated, whatever.
Right.
What are you going to say to me?
You're gonna give words of encouragement. You're gonna say it's not that bad. Trust me, nobody can see that. You're just magnifying it yourself because it's yours and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, and suck in your gut, right?
Right.
So the second component is called interpersonal effectiveness. Now, mind you, there are so many skills that you learn under each one of these modalities. Interpersonal effectiveness, I laugh because I was with Toastmasters International. In fact, I met my husband through Toastmasters.
Okay.
I was an international award-winning speaker, et cetera, et cetera. And so under interpersonal effectiveness, I thought, oh, I'm super effective speaking and communicating, right?
Sure.
And then I really learned how ineffective I was because I'm super direct, and that can be good to some people, but I can be overpowering. I can be somewhat brash.
Mm-hmm.
My Chicago coming out of me.
I'm from Chicago as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Where
South side.
North side.
Right there by Lakeshore Drive.
Oh, me too.
Absolutely.
Me too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you say north side where?
Well, I grew up at East Rogers Park, right by Evanston.
Yeah.
Right? Then I moved to West Rogers Park.
Right. I used to have a store, and I used to manage a store in Evanston.
Oh, really?
Bedding experts.
Oh,
Absolutely.
wow.
Absolutely.
How cool.
Absolutely.
I love Evanston.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
fantastic. Anyway, so one of the skills I learned in interpersonal effectiveness is an acronym, and it's called GIVE. And the G stands for gentle, the I stands for interested, the V stands for validate, and the E stands for express.
Okay.
So it's kind of like the Oreo cookie kind of scenario where you have to, say something positive on both ends before you say something that might be critical in a gentle manner.
Got you. So, I used to work for a Fortune 100 company, and I used to be a sales trainer. So they show you how to get feedback from that standpoint. And it kind of falls within that acronym of GIVE. But one of the first things that you do is you tell people what you see that they're really good at, right? You give them the compliment. Because everybody does something really well. Everybody does something, even if you don't agree with it, that people still can do things that are really well. Like even, the tone of your voice could be so. I love the tone of your voice on how you answer each and every call. And then everybody has an area of opportunity. I like to say that I live in the biggest room in the world, which is room for improvement. So with that being said, so instead of saying what you didn't do well, I'll say here's a couple of areas of opportunity for you that we can literally build on, because the foundation of whatever I told you was there. Here's the areas of opportunity, and here's what I'm going to do to help you, get that, right? And then we just kind of go from there. A lot of times everybody wants to just say what somebody's doing wrong, and that literally devalues people, and that's where low self-esteem comes from. That's where defensiveness comes from, and everybody, in my opinion, everybody wants to matter to a certain degree. So if you only can bring up the things that make me feel less than, and now I feel like I don't matter, and not see the goodness that I have. Oh, I'm sorry, not see the goodness that I have, or any of the good attributes that I bring to the table, now it's a situation of I don't really want to be around you. So absolutely. So I like the GIVE acronym. So you say that's number 2. What's number 3?
So the third category is emotional regulation, right?
Okay.
So I grew up, and my dad, may he rest in peace, and honestly, he was the most amazing man that I could ever, and dad, of course, I could ever manage.
Sure.
Just, very, very sensitive, and actually his brother committed suicide, so it was very familial. And so, anyway, I guess the third emotional regulation, because my dad, struggled and suffered so much from anxiety, I observed a lot of hypochondriacal kinds of things, where he was always not feeling well, or, his hands were shaking, or just a lot of those kinds of symptoms. So, we are very much a product of how we were raised, correct?
Yes.
Now, my mom, on the flip side, the glass is always half full. You can do whatever you want to do, bend the rules, have a blast. She's going to jazz clubs at almost 90, twice a week in Chicago. So literally, one extreme to the other.
Absolutely.
So previously, before I was in the prison program, when something happened, like I had a nodule on my thyroid, I went immediately to cancer, and that I was dying.
Right. The worst case scenario.
I went to the worst case. So one of the skills that I learned is called check the facts. So what that means is, don't waste the energy worrying about what you don't know, because that's what's going to hurt you. It's not, and of course, thank God I was fine, so that's one. There's so many in emotional regulation. Couple things that I've learned that I love is that, there's a reason we are called human beings instead of human doings.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So, we're taught to multitask, and we're successful if we multitask. But if we're constantly multitasking and not being present, which is one of the skills in emotional regulation, being present one day at a time. In depression, I had to be present 1 second at a time because it was very painful. And honestly, I don't care what anybody tells you. Somebody who is going through a severe depression thinks about suicide.
Yes.
They do.
Absolutely.
So all of these skills are, just amazing. But what's even more, when I think about this, and I have a woman that I'm going to be partnering on a project with, I would be so excited to help children from a very, very young age and their families learn these coping skills. Because I think if we teach kids at a young age how to regulate their emotions, how to handle themselves when they're in distress, how to communicate effectively, and how to use mindfulness, every morning. And this is part of my wellness program, and I've been doing this for years. I get in the shower, I do my prayers, I do all of my prayers, my gratefulness, my thankfulness, my prayers for those who are, having some issues, and then I do my gratefulness. And then I have kind of a scrub, so it's very aromatic, and it's keeping me feel really, really relaxed. And then I meditate. I have a candle, and I spend probably about 10 minutes every morning meditating. I have my own little ritual that I do, and it keeps me grounded and centered for the day.
Got you. Meditation is definitely a big thing. I try to get it. I'm starting, or I'll say this, my goal for 2020, I'm trying to start to create the habit now. So for 2020, I can meditate all year, right? So it's really just acknowledging that I'm implementing a new habit, being in the moment of, I know I need to do this, let me go ahead and do this. And I'm really trying to take like an hour and a half out just for me a day. So that'll take care of my meditation, that'll take care of my reading, and that'll take care of my workout, right? And so if I break it up into 30-minute chunks, however I need to do it, if I do it all at once in the morning or all at once in the evening, I would literally look at my whole day and I say, look, I only have an hour and a half that is literally building me brick by brick, right? And that's where that patience come in, and that's what we're going to talk about today with the doctor, because it's those little tweaks of a mindset to say, I don't have to read 18 books in 6 days, right? Trying to get all of this knowledge. I just, a couple of chapters a day, let me just be even keel and make that a habit, kind of like when I sit on the couch and I grab the remote control. That's a habit, right? Okay. So how do you break that habit and start new habits? And that's kind of what Transformational Tuesdays are all about. Now, so you've learned a lot through your own struggle. My thing is, how can you help others? What are you doing now that you can help others?
Thank you for asking. Well, I'm starting to get involved with NAMI, National Association of Mental Illness. In fact, Friday, I have a workshop that I'll be presenting to mental health professionals, caretakers, loved ones, and perhaps people that are struggling themselves. So that's from 2 to 3:15 at the Marriott Hotel on Friday in the Galleria. It's already full, but there'll be some probably Facebook Live kinds of things I can do after.
Sure.
But that's one of the things that I'm doing. I did a virtual, now bear in mind, I am not a therapist, and I do not ever, say that I'm in a therapist mode at all, but I'm a support person, for other people. So with a life coach, very good friend of mine, Carrie Sachs, we created a program called Create a New Life Midlife, and we did it over Zoom, a Zoom call. We had people in California, Houston, North Carolina, Florida, and Missouri. And it was women aged in their 50s for the most part that were struggling. Maybe they had recently been divorced. It was all about how are they going to transition? How are they going to move from one challenging phase, and turn it positive? Well, I incorporated skills when we were doing our virtual program. And it was awesome. It was really great. We got a lot of positive feedback. We will be doing that again beginning March of 2020. I am intending on really dedicating my time and energy to this as my life's work. I just feel, I guess I must have gone through this for a reason.
Absolutely.
And, I'm now charged with helping other people. And I can say there are countless people that I have sent to the Prism Center. And so, I'm so happy to do it because I feel like they've been helped. I've seen so much positive growth.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you know what? I love your story. I love because people need to see that, and I feel like it's always the people that have good hearts that they go through something, a rough time. They may feel like they didn't have enough support or enough resources, and they literally create the support and resources for others that are going through that. And that's exactly what my heart is when it comes to business owners. So that's why I put business owners on the platforms that I do, just to help promote them and get their story out there to build their brand, because there was a lot of people that didn't believe in me at the time, and now it's a total different story. So I love to invite you to something that we're doing in January. I'm a Guinness World Record holder right now, and so I'm going to break the Guinness Book of World Records again, and I need 100 speakers. We're doing the most performed live speeches in multiple cities in 24 hours. So we're doing all the cities here, and so we do have a couple of openings left for a couple of other speakers, and I think from a TED Talk style of situation, just a 10, 12-minute situation, I think you can literally get up there and rock it. So I'll love to talk to you about that a little bit. But is there anything you want to say before you go?
No, I just want to say, like what you said about your practice that you're trying to, instill in yourself for an hour and a half every day. Again, one of those skills is self-care. So that's a fantastic way of taking care of yourself. We really have to get away, especially women who struggle with depression, and men, constantly doing for others. Well, you really do have to do for yourself before you can be available to others. And the other thing I have to say is I am so incredibly grateful to have met you and have this opportunity. I so sense that you're on this wavelength with me. And I'm super excited to be a speaker in January. I appreciate that opportunity and would love to stay in touch.
Okay, all right, not a problem. I'm actually on the phone texting Sunita, Dr. Sunita.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely want you to hear her segment. She's going to be calling in a little bit. For the people that are listening right now that you may want to help or you have some advice for or you can support, how can they get in contact with you? Where should they go? What website should they look at?
Sure, yeah. Go to my website, www.goodfriendspeaks.com. There's a contact me page. My phone number is on there. If you want to book me for a speaker, I do lunch and learns, keynote speaking, and so forth. So, but if you just want to, talk and get some information, please feel free to leave me a message, and I will definitely get back in touch.
All right. Everybody, that was Pam Goodfriend. All right. Everybody give it up for Pam. So we're going to just listen to a little bit of music. Somebody I actually had on the show, she has a song called On Purpose. It's a spiritual song, but I really feel like there's a lot of power in what you do intentionally when you do things on purpose, and not just be reacting to whatever the situation is, that you really not just live your purpose, which to me is all about that, but you do things intentionally on purpose. That way you kind of really gauge the results and the outcome. So when we talk about purpose, when it comes to Dr. Sunita, she actually helped me with my purpose statement. I actually exist to serve by creating platforms. I exist to serve by creating opportunities and platforms for people to reveal their greatness and inspire others through my example. This is Step Up Radio. Self-discipline, talent, experience, and purpose will unleash your potential. We're live in the studios of Kcoh. And her name is Drea, and it's called On Purpose. Trey, hit them with a little bit of that.
Yo,
You should be calling in 1 second.
I think
We'll be
it's
right back.
another one.
You got to see right over here.
I wanna live my life, and I'll never take it back. Gonna clap my hands, gonna do my dance. I'm gonna give God praise and worship Him through truth and life over there. I wanna live the life, and I'll never take it back. worship Him through truth, life over death. I'm gonna live love down, and I'll never take it back. Now that I know who I am, now that I know I'm free, there's no more bondage in my life. There's no more chains holding me. Lord knows I never would have made it if it had not been for the Lord. So now I make this vow to you that everything that I do, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna live love now, and I'll never take it back. I'm gonna clap my hands, gonna do my dance. I'm gonna give God praise and worship Him through truth, life over death. I'm gonna live love now, and I'll never take it back. So I choose life over death. I choose to love over hate. Choose to live in peace with my neighbor, 'cause I need His favor. So everything I do it on purpose.
Yeah, I saw it.
I'm gonna live love loud, and I'll never take it back. Go ahead and clap my hands, gonna do my dance. I'm gonna give God praise and worship Him through truth, life over death. I'm gonna live love loud, and I'll never take it back. My God, He gave me peace. He said I had the victory. I know that Jesus is my Savior. So God, I'll lift my hands and praise You. See, I've been created. Never thought He had me, but I made it. God's been so good, yeah. God's been so kind. Jesus really is. He is a friend of mine.
KCOH TV, The Boost, to Step Up Radio. I'm Nolan Davis. Man, we are in the middle of Transformational Tuesdays. Just had some great information from Pam Goodfriend. And you know, when it comes to Transformational Tuesdays, we talk about passion, on purpose, utilizing your brain. And so every week I have my favorite doctor. I call her my little Indian girl because she's from India. Dr. Sunita Pujabi. She comes on and she's literally known as the brain coach. So, you know, the thing about working your brain is two parts to it for me. One part is, as we were sitting here talking to Pam, you know, you're going through something, it's hard, it's depression, it's whatever it is. Sometimes you just want to get back to normal. And then the people that are really trying to excel and ideas keep them up at night, you're trying to figure out how to do the impossible, break Guinness World Records, trying to figure out how to get to that next level in business, in a career, whatever the case may be. Either way, you have to figure out how the brain works. And I think we have Doc on the phone right now. Dr. Sunita, are you there?
Yes, Dolan, I'm here.
Hey, you okay? You don't sound good right now. You all right?
I was in a session, and sometimes I get emotional. I care about people, and so my nose is running a little bit right now. I definitely am one of those doctors that I've got boundary issues. I'm going to admit it. People are not just patients to me; they're people, and so I just finished. And I have to apologize. That's why I was running late. There was an emotional session in my office, and we were all there, and healing was happening. I just couldn't walk away from it.
Hey, not a problem at all. I absolutely love what you do. You and I have talked so many times, and you've helped me so much, even just from my own reveal and aha moments, that I know what it is that you do, and I know how personal it is to you, and that being your passion and purpose as well. So, yeah, I know it's kind of funny because Pam asked me before we got started, she said, who's going to go first? As the intro music was playing, and I was like, I don't know. I'm waiting on the doctor to call me. We're gonna play this by ear and see how it goes. But we had Pam go first. She was talking a little bit about depression and what she did to overcome, and you know, she was just being very on purpose. Seeing how we just played that song a moment ago, she was being very on purpose on trying to get back to her old self and telling us some of the things that she learned from some of the places that she's been. And now that she's a support for people, she's doing workshops and speeches herself. And I just felt like, or herself, I just felt like it was perfect for Transformational Tuesdays. But as we have a ongoing thing every week, this week I'm very excited because I know some impatient people and I need to tell their asses off. So I need you to tell me about why people are impatient and how we can implement patience within our lives.
Okay, got it. I also liked, and I will definitely talk about patience. I also liked what you were saying. You talked about high achievers, and I know there's a lot of them on this call. And you were saying something about how their brain just keeps going. Were you talking about them staying up at night? Can you tell me a little bit about that thought?
Well, you already know me. You and I, we've talked on the phone 1, 2 in the morning, and sometimes started at 11. But I feel like, and I've told you this before, that sometimes when you feel like you have an idea from God or something has been planted in you that you literally are born to do, and nobody else can do it, or nobody can do it the way that you do it, it's hard for me to sleep at night. I'm really talking about myself. So I get to the point to where now I have this new Guinness World Record event that we're planning for. Man, sleep is getting less and less as we get closer and closer. And that's just always been what it is. And I don't know if it's just, I literally see visions of pulling it off over and over in my head. And I do understand that's NLP to a certain extent, which is neuro-linguistic programming. I'm not telling you, trust me, I'm not. I'm just saying it for those people, for the people that are listening. So I know that's a aspect of NLP as you literally watch that video of you accomplishing those things over and over in your head. But it's something that the closer I get to it, or the more my idea develops, until I do it, it's almost a nagging, I can't sleep, I can't rest until I get it done type of situation.
Right. Well, and that, I think that's connected to the conversation of patience. And I've been dealing a lot with that. That's why I wanted to stop and take a minute. High achievers not sleeping. And then, here we are working really hard to have a level of success, and yet we're not sleeping. So the quality of life, that's the whole deal, right? The whole reason we work so hard is to have quality of life.
Yes.
And in the process of trying to have a quality of life, we lose our quality of life. Well, that doesn't work. So let's talk a little bit about what it is to be patient, because when you're not sleeping at night, it's along the same lines about patience. And let's go back a little bit, though. Remember when we talked about under stressful situations, and are you going to be under stress? Yes. High achiever, listen. You're doing things that have never been done before, so therefore you're the leader. You're the one. If you can imagine Nolan standing there with a machete knocking down the wild weeds as people go behind him, that's a leader, right? You're knocking it down. You're the first one that's going to get shot. You're the first one.
Thank you, Sunita. Thank you. I needed that.
Can you see Nolan with a machete? It's a great visual. So he's there. All leaders, though, this is any leader, you're the one in the front. You're the paving the way. And that, by definition, is a leader. So
sure,
you're going to have stress. Because if it wasn't stressful, everybody would be doing it. And we know that what do we know? 98% of the world's wealth is still controlled by 2% of the world's population, right? It's not that the opportunity to win is not out there. It's just that so few people have the mental resilience and have the strategies. And there may be a want to, but they don't know the strategies to be able to persevere the mental game of success, right? The mental game of leadership. So let's go back to when we know we're under stress, what happens, because we already know that we're going to have stress. What happens? We go back to old coping strategies. We go to ways that have worked for us. And if you guys have been listening on the show, we know that a lot of our strategies got created before the age of 5.
Yep.
You are hardwired on how to deal with life. Your emotions, your views are locked in by the age of 5, which is scary because a 5-year-old decided how you're going to respond to issues that you're dealing with today. It's human. It takes work to override that programming that's on automatic, right? So you can imagine a 5-year-old that has stress, and I'm not saying, please, nobody feel hurt. They have a temper tantrum, and in a way, when you're impatient, that's kind of a temper tantrum. It's kind of a way of dealing with things that you don't like that are not going your way, and it's an old strategy. You have expectations, and that's what hurts us. If you can imagine nirvana and true wisdom, and if you think about, a Buddhist monk who's sitting at the top of a hill, and the wind is blowing and there's catastrophe around that person, but they're able to stay centered, and that's wisdom. And they're able to, nothing that's going around them disturbs their inner peace. And as a leader, you need to be able to access that inner peace no matter what's happening. So let's go back to knowing that our first impulse reaction is probably an old coping strategy, so we need to go back to questioning the thoughts that are causing us to be impatient. So when you question the thought, you actually can begin to choose the thought that aligns with who you say you are despite the circumstances, right? Because circumstances are coming, we agree.
Yes.
People are going to be people. People are going to be small, petty, okay?
Yes.
They're not out to play a big game necessarily. They're just trying to get home, right? They're just trying to, they don't have the vision that a leader might have. So people are going to be people. So if you are not choosing your thoughts, you are responding to external stimuli. That's when the problem comes in. So going back to choosing your thought. So what you want to do is when you feel impatient, go back to the technique we talked about, which is isolate the emotion or isolate the thought. If it's a deep thought, it's a limiting belief. If it's a deep limiting belief, it may be at the level of emotion. It's not in language anymore. So we need to language it. Now, if you have the belief and you can write it down, then you want to take it through the questioning process. Is it true? So one of the thoughts that I had, and we talked about this before, I was sitting in my car and I said, there's no leaders in San Antonio, right? There's nobody in San Antonio that wants to do anything. And so that's an example. I had no patience at that moment. So I said, is that true? Yes, the first response may be yes. The second thing is, though, is it always true? Well, no. Somebody's doing something in San Antonio. Somebody's leading an office. Someone's doing something. So it's not always true.
Right.
The next thing, right? The next thing is, who would I be if I couldn't think that thought? So if I can't think the thought, and this is the most powerful question, because then you begin to open your mind to new possibilities for action that were not available before, because you were entrenched in the impatience. You were entrenched in beliefs that weren't healthy. And what impatience looks like is you're stuck. If you're ever stuck, there's an indicator that there's a lie around you somewhere. If you're ever stuck, because on a perfect planet where everything works in homeostasis and has its best results, there's no reason to be stuck. there's always room for action on your part. Other people may not take action, but you can.
But that's where patience come in, though, right? So for the people that feel like they're stuck, sometimes I feel as if that's the impatient knee-jerk reaction because you're not moving right now, right? And so I was just sitting here speaking with Pam, and I said, I want to, literally, I'm trying to create the habits where I give myself an hour and a half a day. That hour and a half a day is almost like laying one brick a day for Nolan Davis to build the Nolan Davis wall, right? And so I don't have to build the wall, all at once. I don't have to see a huge amount come up today and then tomorrow I'm like, well, I laid 600 bricks today and I'm going to lay 800 bricks tomorrow. But, if I just lay one brick, you may not be able to see that the wall is building from the outside looking in, because who can look at a wall and say, oh, they laid one brick, it was that brick right there, right? But to have the patience to do that, but if you don't see that one brick or recognize that one brick, then wouldn't one have the feeling of being stuck, like this wall is never going to get built, correct?
Right, exactly. But notice that it's all limiting beliefs. Because even this wall that's never going to get built because I only see one brick is a belief, right?
Right.
So impatience always boils down to a belief that is inconsistent with your game plan. It's inconsistent with your commitment to what you're doing. So it's right. So you want to question the belief, and when you look at it, does it align with what you're up to? Does it align with the game that you're playing? Does it align with the reality that you want to create?
Miss Sunita, you sound as if you're not talking directly in the phone right now. It sounds a little muffled. I don't know if you can adjust that a little bit for us.
Mm-hmm. Right. When you question the belief, you can actually suspend it. And then that's when you become a creator rather than a reaction. You create your life by choosing, not based on the past experiences, and that's another thing high achievers have to really get. You've never had this level of success before, or this achievement, or whatever the project is. So therefore, your current level of understanding is insufficient. So you've got to break down your thoughts so you can have something new. Because if what you knew right now was sufficient, that you would already have the results you wanted, there's no need for impatience. But you don't have it, so it's really important to stop and to reflect on what beliefs we are defining the situation with. And so powerful. The minute you just identify them, you don't even have to take action. But the minute that they can stop being the definites, the minute they stop being the truth, then there's a space that gets created for new understanding. And that's where innovation, that's where new ideas, that's where the light bulb got invented. That's when, things really move, is when you have innovation, but innovation happens when you can suspend a belief. So if the results we have in our life are defined by the beliefs we have about a situation, if you don't like your results, then suspend the belief and question them. Ultimately, the goal is to bring them to the submission of what you decide you are up to, what you decide your commitment is in that situation. So to me, does it align with what I want to do that there's no leaders in San Antonio? No, it doesn't. Now, do I know that it's true? I can feel that something is true right now, but do I know something with total certainty? No. So the minute I realize that something is not an unarguable truth, the minute I can suspend it, something new can get created. Now remember this, and Nolan, you and I have talked about this before, whatever you resist persists. Impatience is a resistance of what's so. when you stop resisting what's so, and you can dance with possibility, something new becomes available. And what happens is you move reality.
Okay, now break that down for people. I understand it because you and I have talked about it before, but I won't be able to break that down. Break that down in a simpler term for some people.
Okay, so Mother Teresa always said that she would never go to an anti-war rally, but she would go to a pro-peace rally. Because if you go to an anti-war rally, you're giving attention to war.
Right.
So, right? So when you go to a pro-peace rally, so whatever you give attention to grows. Simply because it's an it's electricity that you're putting to something. And it grows in your brain and it takes your attention. So therefore, the answer that you really need, the innovation, the outside the box, the inspiration, is not going to be available. So you've got to be able to stop resisting what's so. The crazy, and I'm not, and high achievers argue with me about this because they're like, well, I don't want to accept the situation. I'm not talking about acceptance. I'm not talking about resolution. I'm talking about just being neutral. Taking yourself to neutral about a situation where you're impatient is so, taking yourself to neutral with any emotion that you're holding on to is where actually you literally loosen the neurons in the brain, you allow blood flow to happen, and innovation can happen. And the answer that you need will become available. But when you're holding on to impatience, you're constricting. You're constricting biologically, and you're actually constricting the field of possibilities if you're interested, for those of you that are interested in quantum physics. But what I wanted you to understand is resisting really literally is going to persist. So if I argue with somebody about why something is the way it is, because if you're impatient, then you have to explain why they're impatient. The minute you try and defend your impatience, you go into the past or the future. Nolan, what's the answer?
The past.
Definitely. So if your past thinking is insufficient to give you what you want, why would you go into the past? So in other words, when you're impatient, don't try and explain it. Don't try and rationalize why. Why something is the way it is. Just accept that it is that way. So I had to just maybe accept. Right now, I don't see leaders in San Antonio. Or right now, my husband, if that's, I don't know, I'm just bringing a common problem. Right now, my husband is just not going to listen. Why does he not listen? Don't go there. Just, he doesn't. The minute you stop coming up with the whys and the reasons, you actually go into a neutral place and you start to accept what's so. When you can accept what's so, you actually lower the emotional energy and frequency that you're putting to the negative version of what you don't want. Now something new can be created. So again, it's not acceptance, it's just neutrality. So why does my husband not listen? I don't know. He just doesn't listen. Okay? Why is my husband the way my husband is? I don't know. Because he is that way.
Girl, put your husband on the phone. Let me talk to him. I said, put your husband on the phone. Let me talk to him. We can clear all this up in 5 minutes. I got you. No worries.
Yeah. Well, I'm in a good place. I'm a husband right now, but it's a very common thing. It's a why for my kids. Why are my kids the way my kids are? The minute you try and rationalize that, you're going back into the past, and that's okay if you want more of what you got in the past. But if you want something new that you're not experiencing, you've got to get to neutral. And that's the fastest way to be able to combat impatience is just start with neutral and begin to question the foundation of why you've become impatient. What are the beliefs? And then something new becomes available. So Nolan, I do have to get back to another patient, and this is this is a conversation that's so worth having. And we can bring it up again, most definitely.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot. Now we're dabbling in quantum physics, and now we're talking about not just neuroscience. We're talking about really beginning to mold and dictate, be intentional about the reality that we're creating for our lives, which is, that's a huge conversation to have.
Absolutely, absolutely. But, as we look at that process of our natural evolution from who we start to who we become, and as we try to do that on purpose, there has to be patience within that process, right? So,
yes, sir.
So from
Yes, sir.
from just a entrepreneur or a parent or whatever it is that we're really trying to focus on and really be good at, there needs to be patience with it. So as we talk to entrepreneurs all day, and they're looking to make all of this money right now, the whole purpose of our radio show is to really tell those stories, and those stories really tells the brand, and those stories inspire others to be patient and go through their process. And so that's why I definitely want to talk about it. So before you go, I just want you to give all of your information for somebody to contact you. I think I've had somebody call, and I'm going to come down to San Antonio with them. She's actually in my book, Bio Boot Camp, Chef Cassie. We're releasing that book by the end of this year. So she said you did wonders for her. But if someone that's listening want you to do wonders for them, how can they contact you?
I am still answering phones. It's 210-884-1200. If you do not get an answer, leave a message. But I'm also available on my website, www.braincoachllc.com, and I will get messages from there for any reason. And then, of course, you have the amazing Nolan Davis, who is a man of great heart. He will take your call and get you connected with me, because we're both committed to this being a better world for everybody.
Absolutely. Hey, everybody give it up for Dr. Sunita. Thank you so much, Doc.
Thank you, Nolan.
All right. So as we talk about Transformational Tuesdays, I actually did a motivational speech. I have a motivational concert that we're putting together, and part of that concert is what we're doing for the Guinness World Record. For those that know me, know that I have Step Up to Greatness motivational speech. Now, part of that motivational speech in Step Up to Greatness, still self-discipline, talent, experience, and purpose will unleash your potential, but to greatness. I actually had an artist come out, right? And so as I'm sitting here talking about the difference between sight and vision, and I really hang my hat on that difference, because I feel as if a lot of people miss a lot of the potential that people have, because they're not looking at the potential within the person. They're seeing what's draped on their outside. So you have to almost be oozing of success before somebody says, hey, I want to get to know you, or hey, I'm really not that dude. So I feel like everybody has a vision for themselves. So as we talk about everything that we're talking about, the difference between sight and vision is imagination. You almost, because you're not where you want to be, you almost have to imagine where you are. And so Albert Einstein said imagination is worth more than knowledge. So while I'm talking about the difference between sight and vision, I have the artist that's painting Albert Einstein upside down. So when I'm done, he turns it over, and then I give a quote from Albert Einstein. Now, the reason I bring that up is because in the studio right now, we have a gentleman by the name of Ben Workman, and I want everybody to give it up for Ben. And so as we talk about Transformational Tuesdays, the ability to transform a blank canvas into something that's beautiful that way is and I tell people every day can be another stroke on this canvas. We start off with a blank canvas, and people see that on sight, but your vision on what you work toward every day is just another stroke of the brush from an artist, and now all of a sudden at the end of your life you have this beautiful picture. So Ben, can you tell people what you do?
Well, my entire life
has been an amazing road trip. I never started painting until 2011. I actually passed by these studios on almost a daily basis. I worked for the Michael E. DeBakey VA Medical Center I just retired from there about 2 months ago, had 37 years in. And the art career started from a very unpleasant experience while working for the federal government. I was back in 1999 when I had about 15 years of tenure in working at the VA. I was sexually harassed by a woman. And she somehow discovered I was gay, and she was trying to find a way to break me of it, and she turned it into an almost daily occurrence.
Oh, that's exhausting.
And it was just a depressive type of environment that I was in. I ended up having to file a case, EEOC federal case, that I actually won, but it was based on sexual harassment. And they turned around and they told me, the managers at the VA told me that there was nothing they could do about the bullying and the hate that I was experiencing for being a gay man while I was working there. I just had to grow thick skin and get used to it. And I ended up going to work, and I really excelled in my job by taking a position down in the computer room, and ended up virtualizing the computer room and many other different servers throughout the VA system of the 157 VAs. But back in 2009, 10, I got a new military officer that came in that was over my section. And I started being bullied because I was gay. Started having accesses taken away from me. And I won that case too. I ended up having to file, but you go through 2 years of total torment of these cases. At one time I was even arrested and taken down into their own cell that they have at the VA and tried to say, oh, you need to change your story. The type of hate that I was experiencing and the type of depression that I was going through happened to drive in there every day. But a lot of people say, why do you do that every day? You should just quit. Well, I believe that, I should be here just like anybody else, and I'm not going to walk off my job. I'm going to keep doing it and going to work. But it got to the point where I was contemplating suicide. That's how bad it got. And I got on my hands and knees, and I started going into a meditative state, which I had learned meditation from when I was 22. I was in a very bad car accident, and I had headaches, so I took up mindfulness. I learned how to go into meditative states where it would help me get my headaches under control. So when I went through this state of, what am I going to do? I can't take this anymore, and got on my hands and knees. I went into a deep meditative state in prayer that to my honest best, which I've taken a lot of heat for this, because a lot of people say that you can't hear God's voice. You can't. That's not something that is ever done. You're crazy. You're something wrong with you. You can't have that. So whatever I experienced during that time, I had all these visions, and it all happened to me in a spark, a second, just went into me that just told me what I was to do, and my life mission was to be jumper and to paint and to keep going through every door that I needed to go through. It would lead me to a different place, and I was just to follow that path. And that spark happened in April of 2011. Never picked up a paintbrush before in my entire life. I started painting. I my partner on colleges, we live in a nice neighborhood, nice house, and furnishing it with all these nice material things, silk rugs, you name it. I didn't care about those things. I was throwing paint on everything. And my partner finally said, this stuff needs to be shown. You need to show it. So in 2013, I had a show, and I was being followed by the Museum of Americas out of Doral, Florida, and they said, well, we think you're a Jacqueline Pollock in the 21st century. We'd like to send you to Art Dubai. And I went to Art Dubai, and I met the ambassador to the U.S. I ended up having a tour of many of the royal palaces, met the heir apparent of the throne there in Dubai, and he said, you're the Jackson Pollock of the 21st century with a splash of color. And that led me to a show in Venice, and then Venice ended up the Gallery of the Louvre in Paris. And so the vision that I had, when a door opens, don't question it, go through it. Well, if you go back and you look at my life in the past, where I really kind of questioned everything I did and was always afraid to go to the next level, this has been a ride for me that I have literally just do it. And wherever I go, and I just and when I was in Dubai, I ended up meeting some movie stars, and one of them was Pepe Cerner, played on Scarface with Al Pacino, and he told me, your life story needs to be put on film. So while we're on a bus going in between galleries and things of that nature, we're pinning a contract together to make a documentary film based on my life story. And it's called The Jumper Maybach Story, and it's won 4 film awards so far. And my mission is for people to see it, not for a distribution company to buy it, put it on some shelf, and it's never shown, when they think, well, we have March of the Penguins, we can make $500 million. This film, The Jumper Maybach Story, is the film of ending hate, intolerance, and bullying in the world and trying to make a difference in the world. We don't want that. We're going to show March of the Penguins. So I put some controls on it that I want it to be shown in schools. I want it to be shown in colleges. I want to use it as a film that will make people understand that you can make a difference in your life if you're going through a depression or you're going through some hate. Because it's not just the LGBT people that have been victimized, it's the black community, it's every walk of the world has had some type of discrimination or bullying. And you could have a different size, and somebody makes fun of your weight or something of that nature, or have a scar. So I'm trying to make a difference. It's not about making money from my art. It's more about, of course, it takes money to get you to different places. But my main vision is to eventually take my art and turn it into so many different things that I can actually create businesses within communities and things like that. I don't know, I've just recently got into making women's purses, and based off my art, and every woman that's ever seen one, they want to buy 2 or 3, but we're going to have our grand opening at Uptown Park, the Jumper Maybach Boutique, in, with my art and all the products that I've made from it. But when you look at Louis Vuitton, they're building a factory here in Texas to make their purses. Why can't we do that in areas of towns that need some financial assistance, train the people there to make the purses? So I have a vision to use every profit that I can make from my business to be more in a philanthropy type way to better the world, not just to
suck the life out of it, not just to suck the life out of it.
But put life into something.
Absolutely. I was going to say put life back into it, and into those areas that maybe are overlooked, bullied, or treated unfairly. So what is Jumper Maybach? What does that mean?
Well, Jumper the name Jumper, that's why it has to be a spiritual, it has to be a spiritual thing to me, because Jumper came from when my grandfather, he was a clown. I don't know, people in their 50s and later, they understand when I mentioned the name Emmett Kelly. He was the famous hobo clown back in the 30s and 40s that founded the Barnum and Bailey College of Clowns.
Okay.
And it's actually still in Florida, in one of the towns there in Florida. And he was a boyhood friend of his. And when my grandfather retired from working life, when he was in the 60s, he decided to become a clown. And he volunteered. He was the in-house clown for the Corpus Christi State School, which was an orphanage, and it was for children that had disorders and things of that nature, and handicaps, so he took me out on shows and different things that he did, and he nicknamed me Jumper because I jumped around everywhere and I did that. So, but when he passed away, so did my life as far as being a clown. I really didn't think I would turn it into anything. Then when I had the spiritual awakening to be Jumper, I put on a clown suit. I put a clown face on. I understood what I was doing. Most people thought, why is this guy a clown? Why is he painting? Well, it was all tied in.
Right.
A clown, when I walk in the rooms, people look at me like, whoa, walk away. Treat me because I'm different.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point of it is ending hate, intolerance, and bullying in the world. Don't bully the clown. It could just be a black man or a Chinese person walking in a room that is not, that you get that look like, oh.
Who let you in?
Yeah, who let you in?
Right.
Clown gets treated the same way. Right. So that's the way I encumbrance the clown into my art.
Right. You exaggerate the diversity of the people that walks in that's a little bit different. So you do that from dressing up as a clown. I absolutely get it. What is the Maybach?
Maybach came from, I was looking at, Jumper Workman wasn't going to work, and I thought, I got to have a name that really resonated a type of hate that was envisioned onto a family name. And the only way I started doing a lot of research, and I came across the Maybach family that owned factories over in Germany and different parts of Europe, and during World War II, the Nazis came in and took over their factories. And it wasn't like they were pro-Nazis. They weren't. They actually diversed off into different places in Europe and came over to the United States, and a lot of them changed their names because of what their factories did. Their factories made a lot of the war machines and ovens and things for the actual concentration camps. So a lot of them were being victimized from that. So I thought, and then they started taking their name back, and they started getting into business again, and started making good investments and things in California, and started setting up scholarships. And I thought, that was taking a time in their life which was destructive, where they were overcoming hate and built themselves back to the thing. So I said, what's perfect name to take but to take that? So I took the Maybach name. Of course, as soon as I took the Maybach name, Mercedes-Benz of Germany went after me, because they said, if you don't just as long as you don't build cars, we'll leave you alone. Right.
Wait, no worries there.
But at first I didn't think I could use the name Maybach on the end of Jumper, because they were very. It only took them about a year, and they discovered I had filed the trademark. So they said, just as long as you file the trademark with Jumper Maybach, not just
Maybach.
And get into cars, I'll be fine.
Right, absolutely. So So when you're looking at, I know what your documentary is inspiring to do. I understand what that's doing, right? And I tip my hat to you. Actually, some of the people that was here earlier that came over in there's a couple there. Big shout out to David and Trivia Dennis. They actually are the owners of Random Acts of Kindness. So I love anybody who's really putting out hope, that's removing the negativity from our society, because people see that so much these days, right? So really tip my hat to you on what you're doing and people that are doing that out there. But from a painting standpoint, what inspires you to paint certain things? Like, what type of themes are you painting? Are your paintings inspirational as well to remove the violence and the discrimination from society?
I do it all based. It all comes out, and this is where the crazy part might fit in, where people think, oh, you're not really.
I'm ready for crazy. Let's go.
I really believe Jumper does the painting. That it comes from Jumper has a innocent, and I didn't quite understand it until I started doing the painting. And Jumper, when he paints in a way that brings the innocence and the vivid color and a lot of things into the painting.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started doing workshops and stuff for children with autism.
Mm-hmm.
And then I discovered that the younger you are, the better you paint.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it's kids seem to really love the painting, but when they start getting older, they tends to that magnificence that was in the original painting starts to lose out as they get older. So if you can keep that innocence working into your mindset when you paint, I think that because I look at it when I'm Ben Workman and I look there and I go, I can't believe I painted that. It had to be Jumper. So I can't explain it other than I do it, but I do know that there's some significance to the paintings, because when they say artists should always paint a certain way, so art critics and art historians can look at a painting without the signature and say, that's Jackson Pollock.
Absolutely.
That's
right.
And they take, even though I paint in so many different ways, I have the Jackson Pollock look, but I also do what is called outsider art, where I'll look at you and I'll do a painting of you, but it won't be exactly you. It would just be a hand freedom type or expression onto the canvas.
Sure.
And it's called outsider art.
Right. And the only thing I'm saying is that it better be a handsome expression.
Definitely. And so when I've been to shows before and the paintings go down, they take them into the hall and they going down. I hear people, that's a Jumper Maybach, and I'm going, how do I know that? And so there is some type of significance to it that they know it's my art.
Absolutely.
Once they see it.
Absolutely.
And,
I have the same type of effect on video. I own a video production company. And, with that being said, there is a certain, people say I want a Nolan Davis video. And even if I try my best to make them all look different, right? Because it's a different business, it's a different person, whatever the case may be, I definitely try to make them all look different. But there is a signature something that I put on it. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It is the same thing that people can say they looked at the video and they're like, I knew you did this video. And I'm like, how the hell did you know that?
You didn't put your title on it or anything, and they still knew it was you.
Exactly. So do you have another event coming up, or do you have something coming up soon?
Oh yes. Next Thursday from 6 to 9 p.m. is my grand opening over in Uptown Park. And I would love for everybody to show up for the grand opening. I'm going to have McCormick Smith. They're catering it. Stoley will be there serving drinks. You can come out and meet the man himself. I'm sitting right here, Ben Workman, aka Jumper Maybach, and see the art and actually look at some of the all of the products that I have in the boutique.
Okay.
I'm a small boutique. I'm not like a 8,000 square foot. I'm more like 800, but it's what people have told me, I've done a good job at designing it. So
Okay, all right. Well, hey, you know what? As I was talking to Pam about coming to the Guinness, we have 100 vendors. I'd love for you to bring some of your stuff out there from a
definitely.
vendor standpoint and just kind of go from there. If somebody wanted to look at your work or follow you on social media or contact you for one of those, a customized painting, how can they do that?
Go to my website, www.jumper, that's JUMPER, Maybach, MAYBACH.com. And if they want to contact me through email, just send to info@jumpermaybach.com. And they can call the gallery directly at 832-523-4249.
All right. Everybody give it up for Ben Workman or Jumper Maybach. All right. So, it's Transformational Tuesday. Hopefully, I look at each and every person as a person that has an ingredient. Those ingredients you can learn from. So those ingredients, you take a pinch or 2 pinches or 2 bags, as much of it as you want, to create your own recipe for success. So we're always implementing new spices, new ingredients, new flavors as we get to know more about our journey and learn more about ourselves. So, sometimes just like taste buds. I remember when I was younger, I didn't like raw tomatoes, and now I eat raw tomatoes. So sometimes your palate evolves as you evolve. So whatever ingredients you can find here on Step Up Radio, use it for your recipe of success. I'm Nolan Davis. Tomorrow is Wealth Building Wednesdays. We're going to have a great show for you. We're live in the studios of Kcoh TV The Boost. So until next time, love to live to love, and be well.
Well, thank